Good morning. How the devil are you doing this Friday? Hope you're all fit and well. Have to say, mighty glad it's Friday. Once again, overworked myself this week. I'm now running on little more than fumes and sheer determination. I realise that what I do is not in any way strenuous or physically taxing, but by the time I get to the end of a busy week, I'm a spent force. Now, under normal circumstances, I would joke about that being a sign of old age, but as you will see later in the show, no excuse whatsoever. Incidentally, before we actually get onto the show itself, quick point. You might recall that we've had on this show a guy called Steve Kerslake of the Construction Sport Charity. He put up a LinkedIn post yesterday that made for a really thought-provoking reading. At the time he posted it, Storm Kieran was battering the south coast of the UK, and the public was being told to stay at home and travel only if absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, construction and demolition workers were sent out into the storm. Reminded me of the height of the COVID pandemic. Stay at home, they said. Social distance, they said. Do not, under any circumstances, mix, mingle, or interact, they said. But construction workers? Oh, no, no. You have key worker status. You can crack right on. Double standard much? Now, without further ado, let me roll the question. No, let me roll the intro instead. I'll post the question of the day and get this show on the road. It is Friday, the 3rd of November. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, in an exclusive new interview, Mace predicts a more sustainable construction industry, one that involves a changed demolition process. Bringing that to you in just a second. You will soon believe in construction angels. Liebherr is at the cutting edge. JCB's Dancing Diggers perform a drag act. And as I've already hinted to, why age is just a number. But first, before we get to all of that, let us peer back through the mist of time to see what was happening on this day in history. On this day in 1534, yes, remember it well, a Parliament proclaimed Henry VIII and all subsequent British monarchs as head of the Church of England. In 1911, Chevrolet officially entered the automotive market with a car to compete against the all-conquering Model T Ford. In 1957, a Siberian husky became the first animal in space. Unfortunately for Laker, that was her name, it was a one-way journey. In 1992, Whitney Houston released her version of the Dolly Parton song, I Will Always Love You. It would go on to be named Song of the Year. In the same year, far more my taste, the rock band Rage Against the Machine released their debut album with the catchy title, Rage Against the Machine. And on this day in 2014, New York's 104-story One World Trade Center building officially opened 13 years after the 9/11 attacks. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, let me remind you very quickly of our question of the day. Yeah, our question of the day, as I promised yesterday, really does follow on from our discussion yesterday. And it is simply this. Do you have any tattoos? And if you do, what and where are they? Personally, I've got two. I've got the West Ham badge tacked away on my back. Slightly embarrassing. And on my right bicep, just up here, I have an Elvis tribute. It reads TCB with a lightning flash on it. It stands for Taking Care of Business in a Flash. Elvis wore it on the same badge on his karate kit. Seemed like an appropriate one. Funnily enough, about 2 years after I got mine, Liam Gallagher, forever a follower in the fashion stakes, Liam Gallagher went out and got exactly the same thing. I don't suppose he's seen mine. Not many people have. But yes, tattoos. What about you? Are you sporting any kind of ink that you'd care to share? And the question is, have you got any tattoos, on what and where they are? Where are they? Keep it clean. Above the waist would be better for me personally. I'm going to come back to Peter McKenna's. Oh, let's do it now. 1906 is signing an international radio agreement at Berlin, approved SOS as a radio telegraph distress call for ships at sea. Who knew? I'll come back to the other ones in just a moment, but we do have a show to crack on with. So yes, let us know about your tattoos if you have any. Looking forward to hearing that. Probably. You may have seen in the press that construction giant Mace has just published a report called Closing the Circle, in which it lays out its hopes, fears, plans, and aspirations for a sustainable construction industry of tomorrow. Refreshingly, and I have to say refreshingly, while some within the built environment seem keen to push demolition to the very edge of acceptability, Mace believes that demolition still has a vital role to play. But it also suggests that that role might require some fundamental change within the demolition sector. Now, I called up with Jed Simmons earlier this week. He is managing director of Mace's offices division and one of the key contributors to that report. This is part of what he had to say. Demolition is a key contributor of materials as we stand at the moment, and they are past masters at recycling. You know, average recycling rate on a UK demolition project is somewhere between 95 and 98%. But it does appear to be this very vocal lobby that seems to be keen to push demolition to the very sidelines of acceptability to protect embodied carbon. What does your circularity report make of this whole retro first movement? And do you see demolition still making an active role in years to come?
I very much think that the demolition industry has a very active role within our the way we can move forward. And you know, maybe my own viewpoint, but certainly as I've talked quite openly about before, is that the demolition world perhaps should start to think of itself more as a reclamation industry or deconstruction industry, because that is in large part what the demolition world is starting to move towards. And I think there'll be huge part to play in how we then treat those materials, because to your point, you know, with the demolition world has certainly recycled materials very well and continues to do so. But what we're talking about with this report is not just recycling in terms of breaking down those components and taking steel back to a smelting plant where it can be remelted down and reused. We're about repurposing those materials, and by that I mean perhaps keeping them in their current form, but then being able to clean them up, adapt them as may be appropriate, and then bring them back as whole components rather than just being recycled components. And I do see that as an opportunity for the demolition world. And I think those that are going to be at the forefront of that discussion come debate will be the successful companies of the future. And maybe there's a bit of rebranding has to go on as part of that. And like I say, refer to themselves more as reclamation contractors or deconstructors rather than just pure demolition, because that in part perhaps because it's the process sometimes tainted view from the non-educated.
Now that is just a glimpse, a soupçon, if you will, of a full 15-minute interview. You can watch that immediately after this show because it will be going live. I think it's 11 o'clock. I've said it for. It will go live at 11 o'clock today on demolitionnews.com and also over on our YouTube channel. Now, the report itself also makes for very interesting reading. You can get yourself a free copy of that as well using the link that I've just posted in the chat. And don't forget, when you watch the video, you will hear Jed Simmons actually says Mace are actually encouraging feedback, so you could have your say too. So please go and download that. Well, watch the video after this show, download the report, and let the fine folks at Mace let them know exactly what you think.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Just going to throw over quickly to the chat. Peter McKenna says, what's the question of the day, folks? Question of the day is quite simply, I can put it in the chat very easily. There you are. It is tattoos. Do you have any? And if so, what and where are they? That's what we need to know. And we've had a couple of people suggesting logos of construction equipment manufacturers. Not sure that's a good idea, although if you do it, you might just find yourself in their good books and get some goodies. You never know. They might actually take offense. They might actually sue you for copyright. Be careful with that, people. Now, I think we need some of this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, I'm kind of superfluous to requirements at this point because the film I'm about to play you requires absolutely no introduction whatsoever. All I will say is that it might make you believe in angels.
Safety is our number one goal in construction, and we try to anticipate any different type of issue that might occur on the job site and prepare for it. But there's accidents that happen that we cannot prepare for. Things are unpredictable. There's drunk drivers, there's texting and driving, there's distracted drivers. Those are some major players of construction fatalities. Right behind me is a highway project that we're on right now, and you never know. A worker might step off to the wrong place and get hit by a car. Construction Angels is a 501c3 nonprofit charity that provides immediate financial assistance and grief counseling to the spouse and children that are left behind when a construction worker has a fatality on the job site. Recently, there were 6 construction workers that were killed on the 695 project in Maryland, and it killed all 6 of them at once. When a construction fatality happens, we're looking to help them financially however they need it. Sometimes it might be for a funeral, but once we have that contact information and we reach out to the spouse or children left behind, we have a one-on-one conversation, which is really emotional. That first week is a very tough time for that family.
We wanted to get involved. Her mission and the Construction Angels mission is near and dear to our heart, and we wanted to give back to the community. It aligned well with what we believe in adopted equipment. The most impactful thing that we can do through the charity is to be in front of the family and to provide benefits and support the family at the time when the benefit and when the support is needed. What stands out to me when speaking with Christy about the charity is her passion. The charity is her number one love, and I think that the way she presents herself and the way she presents the charity is by far one of the greatest things that we can see in her work.
Pairing with John Deere not only has opened up the gates to give us some national exposure and help us grow, but a lot of their partnerships and a lot of their dealerships that they work with have jumped on board and have come to life and really helped us. We're in 24 states as we're growing across the United States. The idea is to be in all 50 states by 2030.
Yeah, really great initiative, that one. And now I realise, and I'm going to throw this up from Peter McKenna because he does make a very good point. We do have the Lighthouse Club here in the UK doing some largely similar work. But we've also seen with the families of those killed at Didcot and Redcar, that support is not always as forthcoming or quite as speedy as it needs to be. Dan Cullen, morning Dan, says she has said the exact problem: drink and drugs and texting. 6 people at one hit must have been so heartbreaking for everyone involved. Imagine that. Imagine having to go back to work. I mean, I was making light of it earlier about the fact that construction workers were expected to work through COVID, were expected to work through Storm Kieran and all the other storms that we experienced and everything else. But you just know 6 people killed in a single accident, and you just know that a day or two after, everyone would be expected back at work. Same as every industry, though, Dan. It's the same all over, says Peter McKenna. It would have been a great charity. Only problem was greed and mismanagement. I think he's talking about the Lighthouse Club. I'm not entirely sure it's mismanagement. I think at heart, I think their heart's in the right place. Just think they go off at tangents at times. Fair play, and God bless them. Yeah, God bless them indeed. Thank you very much indeed for that, Jim, and good morning to you. So, shall we have a little bit of this? You might have the biggest, the best, and the most powerful excavator in the world, but if your buckets and ground engaging tools are not up to scratch, your productivity will be compromised and your profit line will be impacted. Thankfully, one of the world's best equipment makers is also one of the world's best ground engaging tool makers as well. Take a look. That is completely the wrong video. I have to find the other video. I tell you what, let me fill the gap. I'm going to go with, let me see. Let me go with this and I'll come back to that one.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Just while that one's loading, I'm going to go back to the chat. Dan Cullen, thanks. Yeah, oops, indeed. I know I've said this before. When I first started doing this show, I used to have like 4 or 5 different buttons down the side of my page, which I pressed and it triggered videos and triggered ads and stuff like that. There's about 60 of them now, and they don't always work. Mick Saunders has just joined us as well. Good morning, Mick. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Now, hopefully, yes, that video is there. So let me go back. Let me reintroduce it. Pretend that last couple of minutes never happened. You might have the big, you might have the biggest and the best and the most powerful excavator in the world. Bloody, bloody, blah. But if your buckets and ground engaging tools are not up to scratch, your productivity will be compromised and your profit line will be impacted. You've heard all this before. Thankfully, as I was about to say, one of the world's best equipment makers is also one of the world's best ground engaging tool makers as well. And this time, here's the actual video. Going to throw over to the chat. Lots of people enjoying the Liebherr ground engaging tool bits there. But Peter McInnes says, over the past few weeks, I've seen a few companies in the UK that recondition and remake buckets for varying sizes of machines. Hell of a lot better than the actual main manufacturers themselves. And 2 of said companies are local to Preston. Let me have their details, Peter. I'd be more than happy to share those about the place. And yes, I do get the impression that the regular buckets that are sold by at least some manufacturers, particularly when you're talking about mini excavators and some of the smaller end of the excavator market, they are commodities. They are build them cheap and stack them high. But if you want the proper job for demolition or for rock, as Andy Dalvell said, he did say that somewhere. Yes, he's right. There really is something about an armored rock bucket. Kind of thing you'd not quite hang it on your wall because it brings your wall down, but it's a lovely thing to look at. Now, because I've thrown, let me just go back to the script. That'd be easiest. Yes, the point I was going to make. I actually sat in on a training session with some Caterpillar engineers years and years ago. They were talking about the difference that the right buckets and ground engaging tools can make to a company's bottom line. That difference was absolutely staggering. I mean, literally sort of 10 and 15% difference in bottom line. So even the loss of a single tooth can impact the bottom line as well until it's replaced. So look after your teeth, people. Don't take my advice. Look after your teeth, people. Go and floss regularly. Now, I'm sure we've all heard of JCB's Dancing Diggers Troupe. Some of us will have seen them in action. I have multiple times. But did you know they also had a drag act? I've not been to Santa Pod since I was a child. Just remember it being really loud. I remember my dad putting headphones on me, and even then, incredibly loud.
If you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras.
I'm going to throw this up very quickly. Dan Cullen says, can you imagine going down the M25 on that JCB? You'd get there nice and early, wouldn't you? Probably stop the traffic as well. Now, I am, it pains me to say it, I'm 58 years old. My knees creak, my hair is retreating slowly to the back of my head. I have aches and pains in places that never even used to be places. But apparently, there is hope for me yet.
My name is Jack Butcher. I'm 85 years old. I drive heavy plant machinery, and I started work when I was 15 years old, and I started off on the farm. I worked there on the farm for about 3 to 5 years, and then I went onto the building site. I started driving dumpers, and then I started on machinery. I kept on doing that, and then when I was old enough, I drove a lorry. I went for my lorry test and passed it, and I carried on working with the lorry onto the site, and I was loading myself there with the digger and then carting that to the tip backwards and forwards like that all day long. Some people might think I'm a bit crazy, but I do have to keep up with the health and safety of operating these machines and the other sort of equipment we got to use.
How to get my dad roped in it? Well, the thing is, a few years ago, I just said to him, do you fancy coming on to HWM with us? And he kept saying, no, I'm happy where I am. I said, okay, fair enough. And then we were short of an operator, so I said, look, we're short of an operator, do you want to come on? He said, yeah. Go on then, I will, I'll come on. And that's it. And we've been really...
How old was he then?
Oh, Jesus, 76, in his late 60s. Yeah, we've been working together for a few years now. Years. Yeah.
And Jack's wife doesn't mind?
No, she prefers him to be at work, to be fair. Yeah, she prefers him to be at work. Yeah, he doesn't like being home. He's like a caged animal. He'd rather be at work, sat in a machine, rather than leave us.
Yeah, marvellous.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, so that's...
We've worked together.
We get
all right, don't we?
Yeah, we get on all right. We have our moments, but, you know, so does everyone. So does everyone.
As long as I feel all right, that's how I'll continue.
"85 years old and still behind the levers. What a guy." Jim Turner says, "Fair play to the old fella. Why stop if you enjoy it?" Yeah, absolutely. I mean, knowing how much retirement impacted my dad, I hope he can stay there for many more years to come. That's going to pretty much wrap up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today and to wish you a fond farewell before you head off into your weekends. If you can't stick around, please stay safe. Look after your family, your friends, and your colleagues, and yourself, of course. But if you do have the time and the inclination, please stick around because there's more to come. The Craic will begin right after this final word from our key show sponsor. Morning all. How are we all doing? Just have a look. Graham Footy Williams, love it. That's referring to our man Jack Butcher. Let's have a look. Peter McKenna. It's amazing how many of the old ops are ex-farmers or farm workers. Used to be an absolute proving ground for plant operators. Not sure it is anymore. I know Nigel Williams is one of those. Wanted to be a farmer, ended up in construction. Don't think he's looked back since, but there you are. Now, who was first off the mark this morning? I think it was Dan Cullen. Morning, Dan. Hope you're fitting well. How's the hat collection coming on? Hope it's going great guns. Hope you've got a nice restful weekend coming up. The Darvell. Andy Darvell was second off the mark. Morning, Andy. Hope you're fit well as well, my friend. Who else have we got here? Yes, it's Friday, lads. Woohoo! Yes, we made it. We made it all the way to Friday. Touch and go for a little while there, I think, but we made it. Jim Turner's here as well. Morning, Jim. Hope you're fit and well. Who else have we got here? Gary Muirhead says, "Good morning, Mark. Good morning, guys. Happy Friday, everyone. Happy Friday indeed." Mark Whiting, happy Friday to you as well. He was probably fourth or fifth in the line this morning. Let's have a look. Question of the day. I was talking about tattoos. There you are. There is the question of the day. Tattoos. Do you have any? And what? And where are they? It immediately started a bit of a theme. Dan Cullen says, no tattoos, but thinking of getting an excavator on my back. Think twice. Question of the day, Gary Muirhead. No tattoos. See, now, in my head, I had Gary down as a tattooed man. I had him down as an inked person. Just goes to show. No tattoos, but I'm considering getting a steel wrist logo somewhere on my person. Like I say, think twice and don't forget, it could be a breach of copyright. I doubt it. I very much doubt it. And let's face it, what are they going to do? Ask you to remove whatever body part you put it on? But think twice. Hello, strangers. Peter McKenna is back in our midst. Morning, Peter. You've been sorely missed. Not been the same without you. Glenn Johnston. Morning, Glenn. Thank you indeed for joining us. Graham Footy Williams, I think, has outdone all of us. I've got a couple of tattoos. He has got tattoos on his head, his lip, his arms, and piercings in places. Let's stop right there. I had my belly button pierced. Listen, I all I can say it was probably a midlife crisis. I don't remember experiencing a crisis, but I did go out one lunchtime when I was working over in Chertsey, and there was a tattoo parlour over in Windsor, a couple of miles away. And I went over there one lunchtime, just decided completely on a whim, yeah, stick a ring in my belly button, would you? And funnily enough, just where I know Graham has said about piercings in places, there was a young lady in the queue before me to go and get pierced. And she walked in absolutely fine. I heard a bit of a gasp for breath, and she walked out. I'm not entirely sure where she had the tattoo, but let me put it like this. When she walked back out, she was walking out with her legs quite a long way apart and a pained expression on her face. I didn't like to ask. Now, I've did my various dates from history. 1906, the signing of an international agreement, radio agreement at Berlin, approved the SOS as a radio signal for distress calls for ships at sea. Didn't know it was that late. In 1783, the highwayman John Austin was the last person to be publicly hanged at London's Tyburn Gallows. 1783, that seems like a long while ago. 1728, the explorer James Cook was baptised in the parish church of St Cuthbert at Marton near Middlesbrough. Cook was also a captain of the British Navy, blah, 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 blah. And yes, he did go off and discover bits of Oz and Hawaii and stuff. Busy guy. Back to tattoos, and there is my good lady wife. Yes, she does. She has 2 tattoos. She has a turtle on her foot, because why wouldn't you? And she has a pair of cherries on her shoulder. She does have that too, that now look like a man's body part. I've never noticed that, but when the show's over, I'm going to go and have a look. I'll report back. I don't want my head. I'm on my arms. I have more. Not sure what Graham's getting at there. I'm afraid that got lost in translation. Dan Cullen thinking you're going to do Doosan on one hand and a devil on the other. And I think if you're going to do that, don't do that. But if you are going to do that, maybe do the Doosan in black and white, because that's the one that's going into the dim and distant past, and have the devil on one in bright orange, perhaps. Don't do that. If everyone from our circle got together, I'm sure we would have one hell of a demolition company at our feet. Yes, wouldn't we just? I mean, I don't know what role I'd play. I'd be the guy propping up the shovel, talking about it. Glenn Johnston says no tattoos. See, now I thought this was going to be a rich vein. I thought, just thought that it kind of went hand in hand. I thought tattoos for digger drivers were the same as tattoos for football players. I thought everyone had them. I thought it was a rite of passage. Apparently not. Let's have a look. Peter McKenna, 1/10 of a double heart. Not sure what that means. Yeah, going back to the Construction Angels. Realised it was an American film. Obviously, John Deere involved, and John Deere actually, I think, financed that video. Fantastic work though, and you could see somebody on site there who was really, really passionate and quite emotional about it as well. And I do think, regardless of my, I was trying to be protective of the Lighthouse Club, because they do some fantastic work. They've been helpful to people that I know over the years. But I do wonder if they've kind of lost sight of the big picture. The need to help bereaved families. They've gone off and understandably, I realise it's all hip and groovy and trendy at the moment to talk about mental health and all of those kind of things. But I preferred it when the Lighthouse Club was there doing what the Lighthouse Club was set up to do, helping the bereaved, or the families of those killed and injured at work on construction sites. I think they were better off sticking with that. Let's have a look. She had she said that the exact problem: drink and drugs and texting. Yeah, all of those. Somebody says, and I'll get to it in just a second. Somebody says about the old fella at the behind the levers there, Jack Butcher, about the changes he must have seen. You think back, back in the day when he probably first started, 70 odd years ago. There would have been so few distractions. Nobody would have thought of drugs. Texting was at least 50 years away before it had even been invented. Drink maybe, but there's so few distractions. No screens in your cabs, no toolbox talks and stuff no forms to fill in. You just went to work, did your work, you went home. And as Dan says, there's 6 people at one time. Must have been so heartbreaking for everyone involved. I think that's one of the things that has really sort of burned into my brain over Didcot. We talk at a distance, and I'm certainly at a distance because I am but a journalist. You talk about 4 people dying at one time. I've lost people very close to me. I've obviously lost my parents, but lost my best friend. I lost a very close friend as well. And I've lost those one at a time. You imagine going to work with, and bearing in mind the relationship that demolition construction workers have with their colleagues. In the main, I don't mean entirely, but we all have our ups and downs and our good days and our bad days. But our very existence and our livelihood and our survival often hinges upon those working alongside us. And there is a special bond, I think, that you have within demolition and construction, particularly if you're working with the same team day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out. You imagine going to work one day and then seeing 6 of your closest friends, those that you've relied upon and that have relied upon you, 6 of them killed in a single incident. That must be absolutely devastating. I'm not entirely sure how you go back to work. And I do know of somebody that was very close to an accident not so long ago, who basically saw the accident happen, saw somebody killed, packed up his bag, went home, and didn't come back to demolition ever again. It must be an absolutely devastating thought. Let's have a look. Peter McKenna says, same as every industry, Dan. It's the same all over. Fair play and God bless them. Yes, absolutely. Mick Saunders has arrived. How's the hound this morning, Mick? Hope he's fitting well. I'm saying he. I don't know if it's a he, but I hope the hound is fitting well. Now we got onto the subject of buckets, prompted by Liebherr, but we then went off sideways. Over the past few weeks, seen a few companies in the UK that recondition and remake buckets for varying sizes of machines. Hell of a lot better than the actual main manufacturers themselves, and 2 of said companies are local to Preston. I've got the details of those. They'll be in the chat, but I'll throw them up on the screen in just a second. But bearing in mind one of the things that we've discussed here about remanufacturing equipment, obviously, to go out and buy a new machine, it's expensive, but you've got the cost of actually making that new machine, the steel that goes into it, the lighting and the heating of the factory that makes the factory and all that kind of thing. If you could get a second life out of a bucket, particularly one of those big buckets on a mining project or a quarry project, why in God's name would you not? Particularly if you're going to get a bucket back that's even better than the one you purchased. Andy Darvell says those buckets look sexy. There really is something about an armoured rock bucket. Yeah, I don't know. I know a few of you guys made it up to Hillhead last year. There were quite a few Eurofab buckets about the place. Obviously, Eurofab is up in Bonnie, Scotland. But there was one in particular that was on the Komatsu stand. And they'd made it, I guess the only way I can describe it is they'd done it in kind of steampunk style. So it looked hyper modern and very old at the same time. It's hard to explain, but man alive, what a bucket. It was that nice that you'd probably not want to put it on a machine. You'd want to put it outside your factory and say, or your head office or whatever it might be, and just say, look at this, what a work of art. Dan Collins, yes, Liebherrs are exceptionally great at working on their attachments. They really are. And listen, aren't they all? Caterpillar's ground engaging tools, pretty much second to none, I would say. So, question of the day, Jim Turner says, I don't have any tattoos. I always wanted them and know exactly what I'd have. But you don't say what it is, I don't think. But I flatly refuse to have any, as they're now trendy, and I don't do anything that's trendy. I'm so opposed to trendiness that I considered shaving my beard off when every man and his dog started growing them. Yeah, I have to say, I went the same. I mean, I've had a beard now for probably 8-9 years. And I think my beard growth kind of partly coincided with them becoming hip and groovy, but it also coincided with me starting to lose my hair to a fair old degree up top. And I just, it just seemed like a natural thing to do. And at the time, I could go days without seeing another bearded man. Seems like the world and his wife's got a beard these days. Not necessarily his wife, but I mean, certainly both of my two boys have got beards as well. And yeah, I'm not big on trendiness, I have to say. That tooth pin system is awesome. Would you expect anything else from Liebherr, I ask? Now, Peter McKenna has given us the details of these bucket remanufacturers. JJ Bullen Engineering from Ormskirk and Fox Brothers Engineering Limited in Leyland. Bullens and Fox Brothers also large plant hire businesses. Who better to understand the pluses and the minuses of buckets and ground engaging tools? Could you imagine going down the M25 on that JCB? I've actually seen that JCB GT in action. It's staggering. I mean, I know it looks fast, but it is staggering just how fast it really is. Peter McKenna says JCB have one of the best show teams around. They really do. And do you know the funny thing is, I mean, I must have seen over the years, over the past 35 odd years, I must have seen the JCB Dancing Digger Troop. Yeah, I don't know. Let's take a wild stab and say 20, 25 times. And yet, whenever they're on, and I'm there, I will set aside 10 minutes and watch them again because they're that good. They really are absolutely phenomenal. Graham Footy Williams. I'm 60 years old. Got hair growing like crazy on me. Got a ponytail right down my back. Touches his bum. Well, isn't it the lucky one? Not sure where that's going. There is a web address for JJ Bullen. Where were they? Were they the ones up in Ormskirk? They are up in Ormskirk. If you're interested in remanufactured buckets, go and take a look at jjbullen.co.uk. Thanks for that, Peter. Mick Saunders, good on you, Jack. Many more years to come. Yeah, well, I mean, Mick, I'm assuming you are now properly retired. I know it took a couple of attempts, but as I say, my dad worked from the age of 15 until he was 67, I think, and he always prided himself. I mean, my dad could literally go, and I do mean this. This is not hyperbole. My dad could literally go for years without taking a day off sick. Was never ever ill. He retired and bits started to fall off. His eyesight went, he got COPD, he got cancer, and where he went from being a very, very active 65, 66, 67-year-old to being a virtually couch-ridden 70-year-old. Stick with it, Jack. 85 is no age whatsoever. Going back to bucket manufacturers, remanufacturers, there's one at Morecambe too. I think they're called A to Z Fabrications. Going to go and take a look at that. Speaking of fabricators, if you have a look over on the, I think it's Diggers and Dozers channel, we did a film years ago, and I mean probably best part of 10 years ago, with Rich Holt, he's now working with AR Demolition, but he was doing some really intricate fabrication work on buckets and that kind of thing. Some of the work that guy spits out is unbelievable. I may have to dig that video out just to show you how good it is. Dan Cohen says to Jack Butcher, great man, well done. Yeah, totally agree. Andy Dovell, go on, Jack. I bet he's seen some changes in plant over the years. Can you imagine if he's been doing that for 70 years? I mean, he has seen the arrival of hydraulic machines. 70 years ago we were still ropes and pulleys, and so he has seen the arrival of hydraulics and servo controls and all the things. And he was sat there, I think he was sat in a Kobelco, wasn't he? I mean, Kobelco, cutting edge of technology. I would imagine there's a fair bit of tech crammed into that cab as well, and he has seen all of that arrive in a single lifetime. Unbelievable stuff. Peter McKenna says, not heard of them. That is A to Z Fabrications. I'll take a look. Jim Turner, mainly do agricultural engineering. Fair play to the old fellow. Why stop if you enjoy it? Yeah, why stop indeed? And working with his son, that's no bad place to be. Funnily enough, I had that conversation when I was in Italy with Stefano Pansieri a couple of weeks back when we were in Bergamo, and I was saying, I've been doing this job for 35 years, but for the last 7 or 8, I've been doing it with my son Fred, and for years, I mean, I'm sure I've mentioned this before. I've done things like Disneyland on my own, Universal Studios on my own, because I was working in Anaheim in California, attending exhibitions, had time to spare, but I was there on my own, and I went off and did those things on my own. Doing them with somebody else is great. Doing them with somebody, your son, someone you love, makes it so much better. And we've had some fantastic times over the past few years. Bauma, Con Expo, the trips to Italy, the trip to Wacker, various other places. Loving it. It's amazing how many of the old ops are ex-farmers or farm workers. Yeah, absolutely right. And I wonder if that is still the case. There's always, obviously, there is that crossover. If you can drive a tractor, chances are you can drive an excavator and so on down the line. But I wonder if there is quite such a call for farmers these days, and I do mean equipment type farmers, because they like us have got a great deal of automation. Maybe there are fewer. I don't know. I don't know if that's still the case. Jamie O'Donnell's here. Morning, Jamie. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. If he had retired at 65, he probably wouldn't be with us now. Yeah. Well, as I say, that was certainly the case with my dad. Let's have a look. Question of the day. Mick Saunders got 3. First one when I went in the army. Second was my blood group under the arm. And third is an SF badge when I'd left the army after a few years. I was expecting more. Roll on Monday, says Peter McKenna. Hang on, let me have a weekend, would you? You got swallows by any chance? Yeah. I left my belly. No, not sure what that. Peter Graham did actually send me a bunch of photographs yesterday. Let's have a look. Andy Dalvell says, I don't have any tattoos. I have the body of a god. Shame it's a Buddha. Well done, Dalv. Peter McKenna, my tattoo is 1/10 of a double heart. I passed out scared the tattooist and his wife, an A&E nurse of 30 years, got asked never to go back. It's a talking point of nothing else. Do you remember the episode of Friends where Rachel and Phoebe both go to get tattoos, and Rachel gets hers, a tiny little heart on her belly, and Phoebe has a single dot that she says is the earth from a really long way away. Yes, Friends. I can quote it for days. I have a friend that has 95% of her body tattooed. She used to be a tattoo model when she was younger. Now owns her own tattoo removal business in the Netherlands. And no, she hasn't plucked up the courage to remove any of her own. My understanding is that getting your tattoos removed is actually worse than getting the tattoos done. And I have to admit, one of the reasons I stopped getting mine was I quite enjoyed it. Listen, those of you that have got them, it does actually hurt. Let's make no bones about it. It actually hurts. But when I got the one done on my back, it's the crossed hammers of West Ham on my back. Actually quite enjoyed it, and that worried me a little bit because I thought I might end up being addicted. And just so you know, just because tattoo artists are bastards. So I'm getting my tattoo done on my back. It's on the small of my back. So I'm in a chair like this, leaning forward, and the tattoo artist is working on my back. It's all in black. Anyway, the phone rang when he just about started. He went off and answered the phone. He came back, did a few more lines, and he said to me, "It was the Arsenal badge you were after, wasn't it?" And I must have almost shot out of the chair. And he just sat there and chuckled and carried on giving me the West Ham badge. Chris Ford, morning late again. I'll stand in the naughty corner. Yes, you do that. And write out, I will not be late again. 100 times in your best handwriting. At least you're here, says Peter McKenna. Yeah, quite right. That's the way it works. Apparently, Flannery has gone with Speedy Hire. Now, I did see something about a tie up there. Great. Look after attachments. Makes life so much easier. Take pride in your work. Totally agree. Dan Cullen says, yes, I remember that bucket at Hillhead. I do have a photograph of that Eurofab bucket here somewhere. I can't swear by it, but I think they're buying the business from what I've led to believe, and this is just the start of it. Interesting. Sent you a message, not putting it up on here. Okay, I'll go and look that out. Did you see the video on YouTube of a JCB fast track passing lorries on the motorway? I did. Yes, somebody did send that to me. It may have been you, Dad. Somebody sent it to me. I did see that. Let's have a look. Question of the day. No tattoos, but I often think I have 7 tattoos tattooed on my forehead. TNSTAAFL. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Quite right. Mixon, there's no. Mark, still doing a bit work-wise, but only when I fancy it. So, see, hasn't succumbed to retirement, apparently. Yeah, Rich Holt's work is gorgeous. Hardware welding he does is a work of art. That was precisely the bit that I wanted to show you. I will dig that video out, and I will play that for you at some time. My dad farmed and worked equipment until he got ill. He smoked rollers. Never had lights on tractors. All you see is cigarette end. Go back in the morning, rose straight as a gunshot. Don't make them like they used to. My dad was also, which led to his COPD, my dad was also a roll-up man as well. And one of my lasting memories, and it makes me laugh thinking about it now. My dad used to wear a baseball cap. It's here on my wall, actually. He used to wear a baseball cap when he was fishing. And he would sit there, absolutely intently staring at his float while he was fishing, because he was a match angler, and he was basically fishing for the chance to win money and stuff like that. So he was very, very intent. But there would be smoke going into his eyes, and he would be squinting, and it was making his eyes water, but he would not take that bloody roll up out of his mouth. Let's have a look. Check out Welder Faber on YouTube and Facebook for a look at JJ Bullen Engineering in action. Fox Brothers having a shovel bucket revamped for another company. I actually, at your recommendation, Peter, I did actually go and follow Welder Faber over on Instagram just the other day. So thank you very much indeed for that. 70 years on plant. That's some going. I started pulling levers at 12, still doing it at 64. I know plenty that are in their mid-70s still doing a regular shift. Long may it continue. And I've realised I've said it before, but if you imagine when old Jack Butcher finally says enough is enough, all that knowledge, all that experience, all that wisdom that will go out of the industry, never to return. Hang on to him for as long as you can, people. I'm from country farming background, learned to work diesel engines and how to solve problems with minor tools. Do people still do that? That used to be almost like an unspoken skill in the plant industry. The plant operator, his full-time job or his proper day job was actually pulling the levers and driving the digger. But they always seemed back in the day to be able to turn their hand to anything. Any little repair, any little contraption that needed knocking up, they had a way of doing it. Is that still the case? Let's have a look. Peter McKenna had nearly 2 months with no work, so rolling the new job in a waste transfer and store and hardcore recycling centre. Good luck. Dan, do you still carry a piece of Farmer's Fix-It baler twine? Do you? That's a good question. And pocket knives. How many of you carry pocket knives? Got one on my desk. I type and talk for a living. Still got a pocket knife. Inherited that from my dad as well. With any form of pain, your body releases endorphins, which are your body's pleasure hormones. Hence why tattooing and chili eating is a big thing right now. I actually think chili eating is doubly pleasurable, personally. I like the burn myself. I do like to absolutely push it to the limit. If somebody says that is a flaming hot chili, there's something in my head says, well, you've got to try that then. But being with other people that have eaten a chili that's too hot for them, it is one of the funniest things in the world. It really is. And my eldest son, Ollie, I actually believe there is a thing called a super taster where you're blessed with more taste buds than the average person. I think he may be a super taster because me, my other half, my eldest daughter and my son Fred, we can eat chilies till the cow comes home. My son Ollie finds chicken tikka masala too spicy. I used to use baler twine as a belt. I bet that looked fantastic. And my dad wore a farmer's cap, never smoked a cigarette. not a bad judge. Peter McKenna, no, I'm a roll-up man, no filters, riddled with COPD, only one working lung. I've been smoking nearly 40 years. And I know from having seen you at Plantworks, you're still at it. You haven't finished. You haven't smoked all the cigarettes quite yet. I'm suffering from plantar fasciitis. I must be missing something, as I'm certainly not getting any pleasure out of it. What is that? I don't know what that is. I need to go and look it up. You said he smoked roll-ups? See, there's another thing. I'm talking about my dad now. My dad, one of his party pieces was being able to drive a car while rolling a cigarette, and he used to steer for miles and miles and miles with his knees. Bearing in mind he was 5'7", so he wasn't one of these people where he's got knees generally by the side of the steering wheel. He had kind of a manoeuvre. Drive for miles. I carry a lot of tools with me. I try and fix as much as I can before I call a fitter out, says Darv. Yeah, quite right too. Old school. Yes, Mark. There's still a few of us plant op and farming types around that do everything we can and are too tight to buy anything we can knock up ourselves. Listen, the older I get, the more, and it's not so much tight. We were talking about this here the other night, and not to do with remaking buckets and fixing and mending and stuff like that, but who else among us enjoys leftovers? Do you enjoy leftovers? Because I really do. I like my good lady wife does the Christmas dinner, Christmas lunch, all the trimmings, 97 veg, a turkey the size of a small ostrich, all of the things. But the best bit of Christmas is the following morning. She takes that leftover veg and turns it into bubble and squeak. That is the real deal. And she regularly makes things like stews and casseroles. So much better the second day. Her lasagna, good the first day, even better the second day. I still quite like the old way of doing things, and even things like eating all of an animal and things like that. I don't know. We got it. Yes, remember, always baler twine, pocket knife, and vice grips. Always said vice grips were man's best friend. There you are. I'll send you a link if you love chilies, says Peter McKenna. Please do that. Still got my granddad's pocket knife that he used to clean his pipe with. Best thing for peeling fruit with. See, there you are. There you are. Plantar fisk. I'm not even sure. Not even sure if I'm actually pronouncing this right. Plantar fasciitis is inflammation of the plantar fascia, maybe, part of your foot that connects your heel bone to your toes. That doesn't sound nice at all. You're more likely to get a plantar fasciitis or fasciitis, maybe, from exercising hard surfaces, wearing shoes with poor support, or being very overweight. Somebody said, I don't know if it was here or in the WhatsApp chat yesterday, and it was something that I was brought up listening to. When you're spending money, spend money on a good pair of shoes or a decent bed, because if you're not in one, you're in the other. I don't know if that has any bearing there. Andy Darvell says plantar fasciitis, maybe. Pain in the arch of your foot. You can get it by wearing shoes with no support, stretching the ligaments or tendons of your foot. I've had it by wearing slippers in the cab. It bloody hurts. Doesn't sound like a bundle of laughs at all. It's tenderness on the bottom of your heel, like someone has hit it with a hammer. I hope it's not contagious. And can you beat it? Is there something you can do to make sure that you don't get it again? Or is it one of those things like gout that once you've got it, you've kind of got it? Chris, I had that. Fucking hurts. I ended up having an injection in my heel, not suffered from it since. So by the sound of it, it is curable. Doesn't sound like a bundle of laughs at all. And there are certain bits of your body, and my wife she's okay at the moment, but she's had a bad back. She had a bad back for about a month, and there are certain bits of your body where there's not a lot you can do once they hurt. If you've got a bad back, laying, sitting, standing, walking, laughing, sneezing, coughing, all hurts. How do you get by if your heel is hurting? you've got no chance. What are you going to do? Spend the rest of your day with your feet up? Not going to happen. I'm lucky if I did get it. I only have one pain in. I have the pain in one foot, says Peter. For those of you who don't know, Peter has just the one foot. Fine foot it is. What was that old Peter Cook and Dudley Moore sketch about the one-legged Tarzan? I have nothing against your right leg. Unfortunately, neither of you. Remember that? Rolling your foot over a tennis ball many times helps it go. Who knew? Don't know about. I have the worst trouble getting shoes. You would, size 17, I would say. You might be better off just slipping your feet into a small canoe or something. I'm always in flip-flops. Says, even flip-flops, though, they are of a certain length. Can you get size 17 flip-flops? Peter McKenna, not as good as the Four Candles sketch. No, that is a peach, absolutely agree. Right, people, it's time for you to go and have a weekend. It's an hour that we've done, an hour and nearly 2 minutes. It's Saturday tomorrow, and I'm not planning to be here, so go and enjoy yourselves. A lot of these things happen when you were born. When you are young, being foolish ends up biting you later in life. Like my dad's COPD, like my diabetes. Bye all, have a pleasant weekend. That's a good way to end. Everybody, please. For some reason, we still have a lot of people in the chat, but I'm going to call it a day anyway. I'm blessed. No major issues at the moment. Dan, long may that continue, my friend. Andy Dovell says, stay safe. Have a wonderful weekend, guys. Thank you very much indeed. Peter McKenna, getting married. Have a wonderful weekend, guys. Yeah, go to your homes, go to your machines, go to whatever it is you're doing. I'll see you again on Monday. Until then, everybody, have a fantastic weekend. You have my permission to do so. See you all very soon. All the best.